Atheris is a turn-based tactical RPG with roguelite elements released in November of 2023 by Wild Wits. In it, we play as a race known as vazzards, sending out groups of adventurers from their village in order to escape the darkness enveloping the world, known as the Shade, leading to a large-scale adventure as we walk around many areas of the wilderness, interacting with those who remain, those going on their own journeys, and of course, those who wish to battle us, all while running away from the ever-approaching darkness. Atheris' visuals are one of its most standout features. I mean, just look at this game. I love the world of Atheris. Just walking around these scrolling backgrounds, it's such a surreal environment. It feels like I'm in a completely different world with all these vibrant colors. At first, especially to y'all who have never seen the game, you might be a tad confused at what anything is. Everything just looks like a jumbled mess. And that's what I love about it. It's just so vastly different. Every character, creature, race has such a distinct look. It's kind of an aesthetic I vibe with hard. I love the aspect of the world that are these naturalistic environments and characters meshing with this technology and these machines. It's such a cool world. I know there's probably a name for this art style that just eludes me. Sadly, I didn't get to check out the art book, but I would love to look at it someday, just because I'm so interested in this style and the mind or minds behind its creation. What I'm trying to say is that I like it, and all the different appearances of the vazzards are cool as hell. I can even forgive this game's reliance on rotating sprites. The vazzards definitely seem like just a mixture of different parts and animate by limb rotation and such. I typically don't like this, but I actually think it fits pretty well for this sort of art style, to the point where I think it was intentional, and I'm kinda glad it's this way. It once again adds to that unique alien feel with how these characters move. This is definitely one of those games I'd revisit just to visit the worlds and breathe in them once more. This is helped by the music as well, a mixture of calm and intense songs for the appropriate moments that blend very well with the visuals. With just some straight up banging music. Like, I was shocked when I first heard the battle theme against the Sentinel. I also like the title theme, but I'm sure by now y'all are pretty curious at how this game plays, and I think there's some pretty interesting ideas here. So, let's start with creating a file. The game begins with a tutorial of these 4 vazzards deciding to fight the incoming Shade. This tutorial gives us a basic showcase of how the combat works, moving and using skills on a grid-based battlefield. I'm gonna ignore the part where the tutorial broke because I messed up the movement at our previous step and had to relaunch the game and do it again. This may seem like a red flag, but luckily this was the only real bug I encountered in this game. The tutorial ends with the 4 vazzards dying, and it's here we arrive at our village. This village is where we can use the remaining vazzards to form parties of 4 in order to head out and begin the true game. Characters here vary from level 0 to 2, with zeros being more customizable blank slates, and the higher levels being more pre-built with levels and personalities already chosen to help make the early game a bit easier. Alongside this, we can give each character a spirit from past fallen adventurers, in this case being the 4 that fell in the tutorial. The stronger the character was when they passed away, the better the bonus stats they'll give when equipped to a character, which makes each subsequent run ideally easier. Spirits do more than just stats though, allowing players to reroll stats and skills on their level ups, and even give a free revive when that character loses all their HP, though the spirit will leave at that point, alongside the benefits of it. The only real downside is that you don't get to make coin flip decisions, but we'll get to that. So now that we're on the road, y'all may have noticed that I said that these characters had personalities. And yes, there's 4 personality types: brutality, rationality, mysticism, and empathy. Red, yellow, blue, green. These are the 4 main sort of classes or trees of this game. While they have a greater effect in combat, let's talk about them on the overworld, and just how the overworld works. The overworld is made up of chapters, each consisting of a number of spaces the characters must cross through, and the first space of each chapter, known as the crossroads, gives us a choice that leads into how the story of that chapter will play out, and affect the decisions that we'll be able to make. For example, on chapter 1, we can choose between going to a tower to get a better view, the rational choice, going to the sacred orchid, the mystical choice, farming ponds for empathy, and screw all that, let's just go forward for brutish. As you can imagine, all choices made are dictated by your character's personality type, as in what they're allowed to do, and what's hidden by coin flips. Every time a choice is decided, the character in the lead that makes the next decision rotates. Which means sometimes with chain choices, you can have an empathetic character try to be nice, only for the brutalism character to come in and screw it all up with something else. Which I think is pretty fun. I once had a duo like that. I also love how the dialogue a character has in battle is dependent on their personality. Like an empathetic character being like, "Oops, I didn't mean to do that," when they do a crit, and showing regret when they end up killing an enemy. So the choices in themselves are when we start getting into the more questionable parts of this game. Like, they really just do whatever the hell. Most of the time, it results in a character getting a buff or a debuff, and while the choice results are consistent, so it can be learned, it's just kind of a crapshoot at first. And you just gotta get used to sometimes your entire character build getting destroyed because you made a bad choice. At least for the next fight. This annoyed me until I realized that resting at campfires removes all narrative effects, so it's not a big deal. Choices can do a lot more than just random stat changes. It can cause more enemies or even AI allies to appear in the next fight, which can come in clutch on boss fights. It can skip events, battles. Hell, if you play your cards right, you can just skip the entire boss fight for that chapter. Like, wow, okay. Also, there are choices that can lead to permanent stat changes, alongside new items to the inventory. Personally, I don't think the choices really are based on your character's personality, at least not always. Because I've had characters leaning in one direction, but still being denied an option as uncertain. Like, even with a full empathetic character, I still had to axe the tree. And trust me, you don't want to axe the tree. So if you no longer have one or never had a spirit to begin with, you can choose any choice you want. And more often than not, the ones hidden behind coin flips are more extreme, having great effects if you succeed them, and disaster run-ending shit if you fail them. Now, make a promise to me right now. Hear my words. Do not ever make coin flip choices. It's not worth it. Though with that in mind, I did make a coin flip choice right before the final boss and succeeded, which actually resulted in some helpers for that fight, which was pretty dope. Usually after a battle, you'll head towards a camp spot. It's here you can choose to refill HP and remove narrative effects, train to get more XP and level up, recover spirit points, which is like the magic points of this game, and run. If you notice on the bottom left, we're on the clock, as the shade is spreading and it's pretty fast. Running will give you an extra 7 turns on the map before the shade comes, alongside some choices on the overworld giving you more or less days. I think I have a pretty good idea of what happens when the shade catches you, even though it technically never happened to me. My advice is to just avoid it, but if you have to fight it, then get ready. It's not the end of the run if the shade catches you, at least at first. But with that in mind, it's time to get into the main gameplay of this game, the battles. Starting a fight out, we get to format our characters on predetermined tiles. Often, they don't let you place all 4 of your characters together, so you have to think about who pairs well or who works alone. At the start of every turn, every character rolls for initiative. And yes, there is a specific stat for initiative that affects this. This determines turn order. If 2 characters roll the same, then the character that went ahead of that character last time will go first again. In battle, there are 3 main stats to look at shown by these bars: action points, or AP, spiritual points, or SP, and movement points, known as MP. Action points are used for actions such as attacking with a weapon or some skills. Spend as much as you like, because at the beginning of a turn, they all get set back to full. Increasing AP can be huge, as different weapons and skills use differing amounts of AP, and with higher AP, you can get more actions in a battle, potentially comboing abilities or multi-striking with weapons. I've already discussed SP, it's the MP of this game. But speaking of MP, movement points are how many tiles a character can travel, though active skills often require SP, MP, AP, or a combination of all. It's always good to keep that in mind. I've had plans ruined by accidentally using too much of my movement points that I could no longer use the skill I wanted to use. And this game doesn't have an undo button, all movements are final. The first thing you should be doing when entering a fight is checking out the enemies. You can view everything you need to know about an enemy here. I find most important to be their active and passive skills. This helps you know what you're going up against and what characters would be best against them. You wouldn't want to waste a skill that bleeds an enemy only to find out that enemy resists bleeding, right? Enemies are all very unique on their own, some being able to charge across the map to ram, jump on your characters, or even create burrowing holes to teleport around. And much like player skills, these have cooldowns that can be seen, and knowing when they can or can't use their abilities is important for when you approach. This is the kind of game that you need to be sure of things. With a spirit, a character only has 2 lives, and due to lacking a spirit, their last life is a lot weaker. Once a character falls for good, that's it for them. No chance to recruit anyone else, your team just took a massive hit. I really do have a big appreciation to just how unique all the enemies are, especially the boss fights, some of which being so cleverly designed that it feels like a whole new layer of strategy and depth. When it comes to RPGs, having interesting enemies is one of the most overlooked aspects, but in my opinion, one of the most important ones to making a game fun, and Atheris nails it. After defeating an enemy, and even from some overworld choices, characters will get XP, which leads to level ups. Upon leveling up, characters can choose to favor one of the 4 personalities, after which, the player will be able to choose between 2 rolling stats based off that personality. These can be re-rolled at the cost of 1 SP if you have a spirit. Afterwards, the player can draw 2 cards from a pool of active or passive skills for that personality. These can be re-rolled as well. Passive skills are just that, always on during fights, while active skills need to have resources spent on them to be manually activated in battle. I don't know why I'm waffling so hard, I think y'all get this. So let's delve into the 4 personalities, because they are vastly different, offering up different benefits, and I feel like everyone who plays this game will have differing opinions on them. Brutality is the traditional knight or warrior class, maybe barbarian. You know, physical damage, physical tank, the frontliners with big damage. I won't cap, I think this might be the most important personality to invest in, because if you aren't doing damage, then how are you winning fights? There's just a lot of good cards too, like straight up defense ignore, health leech on kill, to the absolute must-have Thorn passive that lets you reflect physical damage depending on your physical attack and defense stats. I personally think that even if you're going to focus a character into a different personality type, having them dip 1 or 2 levels into brutality is not a bad decision. I actually really like empathy, it's pretty funny. These are the more support focused characters, being able to specialize in high HP, healing skills, and dodging. They have skills that basically set their dodge stat to 100% if they don't already have that from leveling up. Dodge affects physical and magical attacks, so while it may seem like 100% dodge makes you invincible, there are attacks from enemies that can't be dodged. Once again, check out enemies' attacks. So while dodging may sound broken, empathy vazzards are more or less there to just distract enemies. They have a lot of movement focused skills, and a lot of whack skills if we're being honest, but not a lot of damage to actually do a lot with when it comes to attacking. Like, in my playthrough, I never actually did roll the basic healing skill, but that's just how this game is. Sometimes your empathy vazzard could just be completely useless and do nothing. Though I will say, this class is home to what I believe is the best skill in this game, but I'll talk about that later. Mysticism vazzards are sort of the wizards. High SP, power, which is the magic attack stat, and access to skills that snipe from afar, or even heal. Yeah, I unironically think that Mysticism and Rationality vazzards are better healers than Empathy. Though I'll be honest, I personally think Mysticism is the weakest of the 4 branches. Not to say they're useless, not at all. I think the passive ability that lets the whole party regen 1 SP every 3 turns is one of the best passives in the game. And the one that lets you regain 1 SP per turn is worth it enough for anyone to dip into Mysticism for. They have some really powerful skills that can make builds pop off. Remember that Thorns passive I talked about earlier? Well, try combining it with Mysticism's Ice Armor. Little build for the gamers in the back. It's just that the skills are expensive, and if you don't have any SP regening passes, you'll find yourself praying at every campsite rather than doing something more beneficial. Furthermore, they can be a tad AP expensive too. Like on one of my runs, I had a Mysticism character with a ton of spells they just couldn't even use because they only had 5 AP, and those spells costed 6. AP, MP, and SP can all be maximally permanently increased from level ups, so if you roll them, always go for them, lest you get a broken and quite honestly useless mage. Furthermore, their spells are typically strong, but from what I used, targets areas, which is a no-no as you end up friendly firing and wiping out your team. This is a game where every point of damage decides whether or not you're resting at a campfire, or the ability of a more precious boon such as bonus XP. Every hit taken in battle is heavy enough to have a lasting impact on the entire run. I think I need more time in Mysticism to truly understand them, but for now, they're my least favorite. And I should mention, they aren't all just spells. There are weapons in this game that deal damage based off the user's magic attack, power, but depending on your luck, you may never even find these weapons, and depending on your vazzard's abilities, they might just be too frail to fight close. All I'm saying is I only ever got a ranged magic weapon on one of my runs. Though, speaking of ranged weapons, Rationality is just straight up wild. These are just the motherfuckers. They focus on critical chance and critical damage, alongside placing various traps around the map, and you know they got that stick on them too. Yeah, this game has straight up guns and rifles, and these gamers shine with those weapons, often setting up camp with traps and picking off foes from afar, while also having some of the most truly broken skills in this entire game. Like, tell me why Brutality gets a skill that lets them attack 3 times with their weapon, while Rationality gets to attack straight up 6 times, rolling crit after crit and just melting enemies. It honestly rules. How about the Invigorating Trap? This is a trap that heals allies at the cost of no SP. Did you hear that? No SP heal? That's huge! And with the passive that buffs my Rational Vazzard when somebody steps on their traps, you can buff yourself for healing allies. I think most classes have passives that give them permanent buffs when an ally dies, but Rationality has a really good lone wolf one that can completely turn a run around if they end up being the last character alive. Though more likely than not, they'll probably be the first character to die. I think Rationality is my personal favorite. I just love seeing the big damage number, constantly increasing my crit chance and damage just to roll these big numbers and deal mega damage. But I won't lie, if there's any class that should dip into Brutality, it's probably Rationality. Getting things like defense ignore and just damage ups for your guns is pretty useful. And well, yeah, you can go melee weapons with this class, especially considering you may just not get a gun on a run. This class ends up being the most frail. Out of all the 4 classes, I think Brutality is the one that works the best on its own. If you want, you can have all Vazzards main one personality, but dipping into others can help make them more versatile and patch up potential weaknesses. It's basically multi-classing, and the more you learn about the game, the funner it is to explore diverse builds. Though starting out, I would personally recommend having each Vazzard main a personality path without diverging into others. This is because quite a number of skills in this game are locked behind achievements, be it defeating enemies, teaming up with certain allies, or other challenges. A notable one is defeating bosses without any spirits equipped, which is a decent reason to do a spiritless run, though this can still be obtained if all of your spirited characters lose their spirits in a boss fight. However, among all unlockable skills, there is one that is more important than the others: the chief skills. There's a chief skill for each personality, obtained by focusing a Vazzard on that tree for a certain amount of levels, and some of these are by and large the best abilities in this game. For example, Brutality chief skills let you defy death for an entire 6 turns. Straight up invincibility. I mean, you still take damage, but you have 6 turns to finish any fight. This can be used only once a fight, but with how devastating a death can be to a run, I'd recommend every character to dip into Brutality just to snatch this ability. It's a literal lifesaver. However, what I believe to be the best skill in this game is Empathy's chief skill. Okay, Modern Spacey here. The one you were hearing is from like 3 months ago, but I don't know how I messed this up. It's not the green chief skill. It's one you get from teaming up with a certain race, this one. I'm going to probably keep calling it the green chief skill in this video though, so oh well. Also, this game received an update during the course of making this video, and you can now make all choices with spirit equipped, making the act of being spiritless even more useless. So no, it's not the green chief skill, but that's probably what I'm going to call it. My bad. This is a skill that just straight up full heals everyone. It's expensive, like you will need to increase your max SP, AP, and MP just to be able to use this skill, but once you can, it is powerful. Anything that heals in this game is vital, and being able to full heal everyone means that when you reach a campfire, you no longer have to rest. Which is great if you have good story buffs you want to keep, or if you need to run or train for this campfire. Mix that with Mysticism's passive that regenerates SP for yourself or allies, and you've got the best healer you could ask for, with no need to ever rest at a campfire again, unless you got screwed by narrative events. Wrapping things up, we have weapons and accessories. Characters can equip 1 weapon and 2 accessories. Accessories have a wide variety of effects, focusing on all sorts of different stats and often having their own positives and negatives to consider, and much like the weapons, may potentially have a use later on depending on your build. I love how weapons are handled in this game. As I said earlier, weapons use AP to attack. Bigger weapons like spears use more AP, while smaller ones like daggers use less. This means that if you increase your AP, it could be ideal to swap to a weapon that costs less AP so you can strike multiple times. Or how about attack once and then use a different skill? You can play as a low AP dagger character that bleeds enemies and then just use the rest of your AP on a skill that pushes enemies away and force them to just hold that bleed damage while they try and come back. However, if you are going to use skills that let you attack with your own weapon multiple times, it will be more ideal to hold on to weapons with higher AP costs, as they usually do more damage. But that's not all, as all weapons typically come with bonus stats, sometimes positive, sometimes negative, that really makes you consider your build. Due to how often weapons adapt to your ever-changing characters, it really feels like nearly every weapon, even the starting ones, could have a use case at some point. If y'all can't tell, I've been talking about the combat system of this game for so long because I absolutely love it. It's a very expressive game with a ton of build potential, and it's always fun seeing what you're given and being able to create builds around that. It's the kind of game that makes you feel so weak that when you have those moments of great power, it feels like you're on top of the world. However, I think it's that idea that causes a lot of frustration with people and this game, including me. This game is RNG hell. What happens on the overworld? RNG. Coin flips? RNG. What events you get? RNG. Crit chance? RNG. What weapons or accessories you get from a fight? RNG. You can just straight up get trashed sometimes, and you can't do anything about it. There's no choice in this game. You get what you're given, no shops or trading or nothing. How about leveling up? Skills? Random. Stat ups? Random. Sure, you can reroll the cost of your valuable SP, but even with them, you can still get some trash level ups. This game's luck is very overbearing at points. I personally think it's the equipment that gets to me the most. Some runs, you get some incredibly useful gear and weapons, and then it's like others, God forbid you want a power weapon for your mage, and sometimes it's like, damn, am I getting a gun this run or what? I won't lie, I do mind this. This game does irritate me at points, but I also understand that this game would be a lot less fun if it gave the player any more control. If I could just choose what skills or equipment I wanted, I'd be doing the same thing every run, and that's just not in the spirit of the game. It's using what you're given and trying out new things because you're forced to if you want to win. So I guess that's more of a warning that y'all have to understand that this game can be a bit heavy-handed on the luck factor at times. Just keep in mind, this isn't like a lot of roguelites, where sure it's permadeath, but at least the runs are like 30 minutes to an hour. No, a winning run on this game can take 4 to 5 hours depending on how fast you are, which for a game as punishing as this, can make moments of bad luck become a lot more deadly. But even with all this, I think the gameplay is good enough that it's fine, because the game is damn fun. I should also mention that this game has multiplayer. It's only online, but I mean at the same time, if you wanted to play local multiplayer, you could just like pass the controller around for everyone's character. So you could argue there's local multiplayer too. But I don't have much to say on the online, because I didn't play this game with anyone, because I don't like people. So I can't say if the experience is good or bad, but there's a Discord you can join if you like, socializing with people. Weirdo. But for now, I want to take a bit of a break and just talk more on the world. Well, this game's story is basically just, let's get the hell away from the bad thing. The world on its own I found to be very intriguing. Going to all these locations and learning of the culture there, I enjoyed reading on enemies' descriptions and reading all the story dialogue, just to see what the vazzards think of other races and areas, what their story is, to even the vazzards' own culture, such as placing seeds in the mouths of others to grow into trees when they die, to even all the loading screen messages referencing your journey and current location. While the gameplay is great, I also really love the sense of journey this game provides. It truly does feel like your party goes on a huge adventure across the world, constantly on the run, getting farther away from your home to look for some escape as the shade consumes all. I vibe with this world, and I think the creators did a brilliant job at making it feel like such a fleshed out place for a game where your characters just automatically move across a 2D plane. Part of my appreciation of this game and interest in playing more is just to see more of this world, what's happening to these locations and the people who guard them. It's a great world to escape and to become a part of. One of the last things I want to talk about for this video is the structure of the game, because it's something that caught me off guard. When it comes to the home village, I assumed it followed the line of most roguelikes, where this would be some sort of hub base where you can buy upgrades, recruit new vazzards and such. But no, the 16 vazzards you start with are the only characters you get, which adds a bigger weight to each run, doing your best to make it as far as you can, so that the spirits for your next run may potentially bring you to the end. And at the time, my ass didn't know that, so I'm out here doing spiritless challenge runs and stuff, unaware that if you lose all your characters, you have to start the game over again. Although you do keep your skill unlocked, so there is some permanent progression. But luckily, I clutched up and had the total run of my life, making it all the way to the very end, and even found myself getting the, what I would say, true ending of the game, which taught me a bit more of the mechanics of the dust, which I'll choose not to spoil. But I will say, I absolutely loved the thrill ride it was to make it to the end. And the ending was straight up beautiful. The calming music I found especially notable. It really felt like a breath of fresh air after all the fighting. It really felt like the world was healing. Atheris is such a unique journey of a game. From its beautiful art, music, world, characters, to its exciting and fun gameplay. There was so much love, so much magic put into this game that you can feel. I'm really glad I managed to beat it. It was a great time and an amazing ending. I will say, the price of this game may be a little steep for a lot of people, especially for one I beat in like 12 hours or so. But that's something y'all have to consider if this game interests you. I guess the one thing that surprised me the most is that I was actually given this game for free by Wild Wits. And I'm so thankful they gave me the opportunity and showed me this game. I'm really glad I played through this. I mean, I don't know how the hell you all found me, of all people. But hey, thanks. I recommend this game if y'all are interested in it. But as for me, I really enjoyed exploring the beautiful world of Atheris. I'm Spacey Soundy, and I'll catch you all later. Kenshi Ago, my Golly Gamer Tier supporters, thanks for supporting me. I know I always say it, but I always mean it to the end of time how thankful I am for y'all. We're still far from there, but y'all give me hope that we'll get there someday. Though with that in mind, if you're ever in financial trouble or need to drop the support, then yeah, go ahead. It'll be fine. I'm not worth nothing.